So welcome back to Python programming from beginner to programmer. In this video segment, we're going to plunge right in and to examine the interconnectivity between SQL, Pandas, data frame, and Excel. Three very commonly used storage facility programming language mechanism in our daily lives and in commercial business settings. So in this classroom slide here that I'm showing you, the question is this: is it possible that we use Python to kind of drive data from SQL and then into Pandas data frame, because data frame is so useful, so powerful, so easy to program. So we just massage it a little bit and then we write it out into SQL or into Excel. And then the other way around, can we read from Excel into data frame and then perform some updates, changes, modifications, and then write it into SQL and then read back again, So there are three storage formats here: Excel storage, Pandas data frame, which is inside the memory, and SQL storage in its own way, in the database manner, right? So the question is it possible to interchange data, the flow of data like that? Yes, answer is yes, right? So Pandas is really powerful in supporting all these in I/O, input output mechanisms, and it has extensive read underscore to underscore methods in pandas and data frames to support all the very high integrity data exchange. What I meant by high integrity is that when you read in and you write out in a different format, sometimes information is lost. Example, if you have very nicely, beautifully decorated color schemes in Excel and you save as CSV, when you read back in, yes, Excel can read in CSV, but all the color information that is so important, so attractive, and so sort of distinguishing group of data from one another is gone, it's lost, because CSV is unable to carry the color information. So when we move data back and forth between Excel, Pandas, and SQL, there may be information lost occasionally when some data is extreme, but by and large, Pandas has done an excellent job to preserve as much as high an integrity of the information content as possible, limiting to what the storage format is able to support. So since Excel in its .xlsx form, not CSV form, but the main Excel format, is quite capable of receiving string, number, and floats and boolean. Pandas obviously is within Python itself, can handle string, boolean, integers, and float. And SQL of course can handle these four types as well, because boolean is quite easily converted to integer 1 and 0. And so these three storage and processing mechanisms actually can interchange most of your information pretty nicely. That means with minimum information loss or conversion errors or type errors. So that's very reassuring when Pandas is doing its job so well in terms of preserving the integrity of data. So here let's have a feel of this power, all right, with an actual example. And what we want to do is, first of all, we are going to prepare an Excel file. So I'm going to call this DB data pandas Excel SQL and then the date attached to it. So this Excel file is going to be read in using pandas read Excel. So we read in this from Excel, and the bunch of Excel data will be here, right? So we read that in, and then we straight away create a new database, pandas exchange, in my usual d:/temp/py_on. So I'll want to sort of dump the entire data frame df to SQL. So as simple as df to SQL. Instead of df to Excel, df to HTML, you just say df to SQL, giving it the table name, the connection object that we have here, not the cursor, but the connection, because connection is more overall over encompassing. So from connection, you can always derive cursors, but not the other way around. And then we say if exists, then we replace. That means if the table already is there, then it will just replace the content, like delete all the rows, then replace it with new content. And index is false. That means don't insert all these 1, 2, 3 into it. Then we create a cursor because we are going to execute a delete. What we want is to store the Excel data. First of all, use it to initialize the SQL and call this an out table. So we're going to call it out. Then we want to use SQL commands to modify it a bit. So for the sake of simplicity, I just delete some lines here where the FR is P&L. So we'll be left with only balance sheet account code. Okay, only the BS codes, no more PL. So we execute this delete. All right, we delete it. We haven't committed, but we're going to insert a couple more before we commit. So we're going to manually type in Python these 2 lines. So we delete 5 rows and we insert 2 new rows. This data only exists in our Python script. It doesn't come from Excel. It's nowhere else in existence. So our Python has these 2 rows: property warehouse, account code is BWare, BS asset, mortgage UOB, BMort, BS liability. So using cursor.execute many, remember, so when we insert rows, we put question marks in each column, and then we supply the list of lists or list of tuples in the data value. So this is a pretty standard calling convention. There's no need to try to change it. So we just type in our data here. So after this, we commit to the change, meaning we want to remove the 5 rows and insert the 2 new rows. So at the end of this commit, we should see that the out table has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then we perform a select star from this out table. That means we grab everything back. We grab everything back and we print it out, and then we close the connection. So that will be our the whole planned activity. And we can then go outside of our SQL, our Python. We make some modifications to the out table via SQLite Studio. So we just do some modifications, and then we extract the modified out table, all right, and then via Pandas and write it into Excel, called out.xlsx. Suppose that is our business intention, because our colleague who didn't learn Python programming kind of has to be contented with using SQLite Studio to open up the out table and manually edit. Okay, so the person did that, and now we are in charge of creating or deriving an Excel file to be sent to our colleagues, overseas branch colleagues. So what should we do? Very simple. Just do this. The database is pandas exchange.db, perform a connection, and Pandas itself will derive the cursor. So here, the yellow box, remember the yellow, green, and the white box, right? So the yellow box is only up to connection. We actually don't need to create a cursor. And the green box here is responsible for deriving the cursor from the connection. And here, Pandas does the job of doing that. All we need to do is to say pd.read SQL, read from SQL, and then we must issue a select command, because as you know, select is pretty versatile. We can do all kinds of select. So issue the relevant SQL command that would result in the table of data being read in, and pass in the connection, right, from which Pandas can derive the cursor. Then we print out what is in df2. Having satisfied ourselves, we can do a df2 to Excel, which we have learned already, to the out.xlsx file, and then we close the connection. Yeah, okay, so that will be our plan. So let's go back to our first step here. And what I'm going to do is to show you my d.temp, d.temp/py_on, right? So over here, we've been building up our past databases and scripts. And here I've freshly copied this db data dash pandas excel SQL dash date dot slxx. Let's open up and see. It should show a table of 10 rows, right? 10 rows here with the headers, right? And everything like that. Okay. So with this, let's close this. We are now able to program the stuff in. So let's go to our spider. Okay. We will create a new file. And for simplicity, we can just quickly um, copy from our previous script and modify from there. And this time round, we also need pandas. So let's import pandas as pd. Okay. And I'm going to stick on this os.change directory to my standard directory so that when we perform a df to SQL, df to Excel, all the files will be pointing or opening a connection like this, then all the files will be pointing to the correct working directory. Now, let's begin our reading in. So here, we will perform the read in this way. Define our Excel file. The file name is this. If you name it differently, just name it differently here, right? Our DB, our database, has this file name pandas exchange. Currently, as you can see here, currently we don't have that database with us. So the pandas.db is not there. We don't have to worry about whether it's there or not. We don't have to create a 0-byte file to get ready. SQLite will do the right thing. Okay, so all we need to do is to, first of all, read in the Excel. We know we can do that. So we just read that in and print out the file content. Okay. Maybe it's a good idea to, yeah, just stop here and look at what